This is part 1 of the chapter Heredity and Evolution, Standard 10th Science. Here we are going to learn something about heredity and evolution. They are two different things. So first we'll start with some basic points. What is variation? So variation means there are some traits or characteristics in the parents which are transferred to the offsprings or the children. Now during transmission, some slight variation of the traits or slight change in the traits or the characteristics do take place. Now why are they important? So if you see, the importance is, first is, if variation takes place, it enables the organism to adapt themselves to the changing environment, because we have to remember that not all organisms can survive in all environments, but surely they can adapt themselves. So this adaptation is possible only by some variation in the children from the parents. Then it forms the basis of heredity. Heredity means what? A parent gives its genes or DNA or the characteristics to his offsprings. So it is slight variation, because parents, male and female, when they come together, you will find there is a heredity, some characteristics of the male and some characteristics of the female parents, they come into the child. So there is some heredity, some part of this is carried forward always. Then the third is, it forms the raw material for evolution and development of new species. Evolution means slowly a new species can be evolved which will have slightly different characteristics from this. Now this is, it will not immediate, it takes a lot of time. So what happens? So this is, we'll take one example. Now accumulation of variation. How does variation accumulate? Now if one bacterium divides, then it will is geometric proportion, then it will make two bacteria, and these two will, so it is geometric, 2 to 4, 4 to 16 and so on. So then what will happen? Always when the DNA is copied, when the hereditary characteristics are passed on to the next, there is a minor difference, because it is not like a Xerox or a copying machine, where even if you copy 100 copies, the 100th copy will be the same as the first copy. Now that is a machine, but here it is nature, it is of biological nature. So whenever copying of DNA takes place, there is a very minor difference which is called variation. Now this variation will actually help them. For example, a bacteria, if all the bacteria in the world are up there having the same genetic material, some of them, when the if some change occurs in the environment, all will be dead. But if there is some variation, so we will have different strains of bacteria. Some can withstand heat, some can withstand cold conditions, some can withstand dry conditions, some can withstand wet and humid conditions. So because of this, the species continues. So variation is very important for the continuation of the species also. Now the selection of variation, it forms the basis of evolutionary process, because there were some trees, coniferous trees, they had very straight branches, but as over millions of years, snow and rainfall, it made the branches bend. So there is a slow transformation. Now if you see the coniferous trees, the branches are always sloped. So this is the variation. So what do you mean by this? So this is two different things, heredity and so genetics. So genetics is a branch which deals with heredity as well as variation. Now what does heredity mean? It is simply the transmission of characteristics from one generation to the other. But what does variation means? Variation means the differences in the characteristics. Some may have blue eyes, some may have hazy eyes, some may have straight hair, some may have curly hair. So this is variation, and that variation, not everything is passed from the parent to the same to same. There is some variation in the offspring. Now variations are of again two types, somatic and gametic. Somatic means it takes place in the cells. It is neither inherited nor transmitted. It is just for that specific organism, and such traits Such variations are also known as acquired traits. Then what are the examples? So some, if you make holes in the hair for some, it is not necessary that the person who becomes big and gives birth to this thing, that also will have the same holes. If you take the tails of a dog or a, what we say, rats, and cut it and and the rat reproduces, it doesn't mean that the offsprings or the children of the rats will be tailless. No, it is only for that. So that is, it is not hereditary. Now next is genetic variation. So this is only somatic, it's only for that specific generation. What happens in somatic? Somatic means it takes place in the reproductive cells or the gametes, and that is why it is transferred during reproduction. It is inherited, so they are also called as inherited. For example, human height, skin color. Now a negro or a black person, generally it gives rise to a black. A fair person will give to a fair. It is general I am talking about. So this is what is called. Now heredity, just we just talked. Then in sexual reproduction, as we know, there is an error always in, and that will give rise to some variation, and these variations are really useful. So we have also talked of heredity. It is a variation, or it is a specific characteristic, or a specific characteristic which is called a traits. Traits we have just seen, inherited and acquired traits. We will be doing this later also. So there was a great Austrian genetist, right, by the name of Gregor Mendel. He started his experiment with garden peas, and he interpreted the results so nicely, so that became the foundation of modern genetics. So what did he do? So we will just see. He did first on the inheritance of traits. First he took one visible characteristics. Now one visible characteristic means he took one plant, a tall plant and a short plant. So tall plant is given by big T, the dominant, and the small t is given by short tree is given by small t. So what happens in the first one? So in the first you get all TT, just the combinations. So if you can see here, yeah, you can just see this. So this will exactly tell you. So this is what he did. So he took pure tall tree and pure dwarf T. So in TT this was T and this is small tt. So what happened is, so when he crossed them, he found the first generation they were all tall, because each of them that had that TT. So if you see this, it is TT, TT, TT. But then what happened, in one of the this thing, the combination was TT. Now wherever both that small t came, that became a dwarf plant. So this is the dominant TT. So even one T, one capital T or one capital trait of tallness is enough for the tree to make tall. But for making a dwarf plant, small t, you require both the T's. So we can say the tall and dwarf ratio in this case is 3:1. Now this is what he did. Now in the same way, he tried to do it in the two visible contrast. Now two visible contrast means he took two different characteristics such as round and wrinkled, and colors also he chose. So this is what he did. So we can see from this. So he took two separate things. One is round. So round is given by RR and Y and green color, and another was wrinkled and yellow color. So yellow color was dominant. So what he found, in the first generation it was RRYY, round and yellow. But then when he came to the second generation called as F2, so there he found the ratio to be 9:3:3:2. What does 9 mean? Round yellow were 9, they were maximum. Round green were only 3, wrinkled yellow were 3. Now this is the ratio, not the number of plants. So this can be further seen in this figure. Just see this figure. So this will exactly give us an idea. So this is round and green, and this is wrinkled and yellow. So these are the gametes RY and RY. Please see the combination, capital R, small r, capital Y. So the first generation, it was RRYY. Now the first generation was crossed with another first generation. So F1 into F1. Here we can see the different ratios. So what were the different ratios? The different ratios were 300. So he take a number of plants, but we are just seeing the ratios. So most of them were round and yellow. This is what we are told. The ratio is 9. Then came the combination round and green, which was only 3. It was like this, round and green. We can see the images. Then came wrinkled and yellow. This combination gave us 3 3, and then came the last combination, wrinkled and green. So this is how the ratio was fixed. So he had totally taken 556 seeds, and then he found this ratio. So this is how we can see the characteristics are passed on to the next generation. Thank you.